The world of ReZero has multiple groups and categories of all powerful beings. We have the Great Spirits who have absolute dominion over their respective element of magic, Witch Factor users who have access to authorities that defy all of the rules of the world itself and stand above all other power systems in the series, the strongest of each kingdom. One of these combatants being Reinhard von Estrella, who possesses so much power that him simply entering another kingdom is considered to be an act of war from Lagunica, and even the heroes of the world who once stopped the Great Calamity. There are so many different characters with all sorts of strength and abilities. And of course, this has led to many discussions about who's more powerful than who, and who is truly the strongest in the world of ReZero. After examining all Sin Archbishops, witches, king candidates, heroes, great spirits, and so many more different groups of characters, this is the conclusion I have come to when it comes to the 10 most powerful characters in the story. However, I can be incorrect, so don't take every single thing I say here as gospel, as this series just has so much information that it's almost impossible to remember every single thing. With that said, if you guys enjoy content such as this, leave a like and subscribe to help the channel out, and now, let's get into it. To begin, choosing who gets the number 10 spot is going to be more difficult than most, as there's so many characters to choose from. But I've decided to start this list with Puck, the current Great Spirit of Fire. Puck is one of the very first characters we meet in the story, and despite his initial appearance as a tiny little cat who can wield some very powerful fire magic, we eventually come to find out his true nature as a great spirit when Amelia would lose her life in one of Subaru's loops. Puck's true form is a monstrous, 20-meter cat-like beast that is referred to as the Beast of the End. This transformation apparently boosts his power by a significant margin, and actually requires so much power to sustain that Puck must drain all the mana from his vicinity in order for him to maintain it. This usually results in a massive snowstorm and everything being frozen due to the removal of mana, which usually sustains the life of the world. This alone is what makes Puck such a massive threat, as really majority of the characters in the story cannot handle the effects of Puck's presence in the world, and this is more than likely why he's referred to as the Beast of the End. Puck again also has access to some pretty powerful fire magic, as he is the Great Spirit of Fire, but he usually uses it to manipulate temperature in order to generate ice, rather than using literal fire, although he's probably capable of that too. Puck can also use water and dark magic at low levels as we've seen, and can manipulate the size of his forms if necessary. The main reason we don't see Puck use all of his power whenever he wants is due to his contract with Amelia that restricts both of their overall strength. After Puck we have Cecilus Segmund. Cecilus serves as the strongest combatant and first divine general for the Kingdom of Valakia. As we know, we don't really see Cecilus until much later in the story, but when we do, he's about 10 years old. This 10-year-old version of himself was shown smacking around a dragon with relative ease. This is the same dragon that Garfield would have tons of trouble with later on in the story. He was even able to combat the second divine general Arakia while she was infused with the power of the Great Spirit Muspel, and he had a little bit of trouble with this opponent, but once he was able to regain his original adult body back, he handled her relatively easily, and then went on to cut a magic star in half right after. Cecilus really does live up to his reputation as one of the strongest. He has insanely high overall stats, with speed that even surpasses Reinhard, and the physical strength to beat dragons to death while he was a 10-year-old, but his true power lies in his swordsmanship and the two blades of power that he possesses, Murasame and Masayume. Masayume is also referred to as the Dream Sword. This blade grants its user the ability to achieve their dreams, or the motivation for a wish that they want to come true no matter the circumstances, but they have to pay a price, which is the dream itself. However, if the user has an insane obsession with the dream that they wish to achieve, they can actually negate this cost and continue to use the blade while keeping their dreams. Cecilus usually obsesses over becoming the Sword Saint, or in other words, the strongest man to wield a blade, so he tends to gain insane power boost on top of what he's already capable of when tapping into the power of this blade. This is typically how he's able to give Reinhard some trouble whenever they battle. Murasame is the other blade that Cecilus uses, and this is referred to as the Fiend Sword. The wiki actually explains this sword much better than I ever could, so I'm gonna rely on that. Murasame has the ability to sever the perceived point that exists in everything, no matter the person, object, phenomenon, or concept. This allows it to cut through things without a physical form, including curses and contracts. Since cutting authorities is also a thing in ReZero that we've seen another swordsman do, it could potentially do that as well. Both of these blades allow Cecilus to serve as a force of nature in the world that almost nobody can stop, and it's a good thing that he sees Subaru as his boss and leader that he must serve in every timeline they meet, rather than an enemy. The 8th strongest character in ReZero has to be the Witch of Sloth, Sekhmet. As her title suggests, Sekhmet is a very lazy individual. The woman even refuses to sit upright and requires another witch to bathe her daily. Despite her incompetence, she is easily one of the most powerful characters in the verse. Let me put it into context. All of the current witches reside in an area called the Witches' Tea Party, and they all coexist under a certain set of rules. Sekhmet is the enforcer of these rules, and in the event that a witch acts out of line, she's able to completely restrain any one of the other walking calamities instantaneously, and there's nothing they can do about it. As for Sekhmet herself, she only acts as the enforcer, as she doesn't even have the energy to engage in debates or tantrums or anything like that. She was even stated to be able to destroy all of the other witches combined in under a minute if she pleased. Of course, this doesn't include Satella, who doesn't even take part of the Witches' Tea Party, but you get what I'm saying. She has also been able to battle against Volcanica for a decent amount of time. We don't really know much about Sekhmet, as we've only seen her for a little bit in Arc 4. All we know about her powers is that she has some sort of invisible crushing force that is a little similar to her Sin Archbishop counterpart Betelgeuse. Except for that, nothing else has been shown or said. Of course, with the author confirming that all witches will appear in the final arc of ReZero, we more than likely will be seeing her at some point and getting an understanding of her power when that time comes. After Sekhmet, we have Ram if she were to reobtain her horn. Yes, the Ram we all know and love at the peak of her strength is one of the most powerful characters in the series. Ram was originally referred to as the second coming of the Oni god before losing her singular horn. Mind you, Oni are typically born with 2, but since Ram is a twin, she was only born with 1. The author has made many statements both in and out of the story when it comes to Ram's full strength, saying things such as she's able to battle Regulus and throw him off of the Great Waterfall in order to defeat him, and that she stands as one of the most powerful characters in the series. We haven't really gotten much from Horned Ram in this story either, as all we've seen her do was completely decimate Lai in his god state while barely using any of her own power during the climax of Arc 6. But since using the horn always puts her life at risk and incapacitates her, she never uses it. Even during that battle with Lai, there were extremely rare circumstances set up to even allow her to manifest her horn. All in all, when it comes to Ram, the author has made it clear for many years that Ram is extremely powerful and serves as a legitimate reincarnation of the Oni god. And the fact that she was able to completely shred one of the most powerful Sin Archbishops to bits with absolute ease is proof of that. She could be even higher than I have her listed here, but again, she just isn't shown too much in the story, so it's really hard to get a gauge of how her abilities interact with the world of ReZero. You gotta remember, there's like 6 different power systems in this one story, so every fight tends to be different and it's hard to predict how characters will engage with another. Now Regulus finds himself in the 6th spot of this list, sitting right above Ram, although their spots are interchangeable from my perspective. I decided to place Regulus above Ram simply because of the fact that he matches up against characters in the story better than anybody else really. Thanks to his Lion's Heart and Little King, Regulus has the ability to freeze the flow of time not only on himself, but anything he touches, and this allows him to be invulnerable as long as the ability is active, which is permanently, all the while being able to make anything he throws into high-speed bullets that ignore all rules of the world. I explain the ability with as much detail as possible in this video here, but simply put, nothing can stop anything that Regulus makes contact with, as he was even able to throw Reinhard all the way to the moon during their fight in Arc 5, and he can even make his breath do lethal damage to anybody. He's a ridiculous character to say the least. The reason why I have him so high up on the list is because he is one of the very few characters in the series who Reinhard cannot actually beat. And this applies to the majority of the characters due to the nature of his ability and the fact that they will more than likely be unable to figure it out. Regulus is only hard countered by Reed, who is stated by the author to actually have the ability to behead Regulus and has been shown to quote-unquote cut Subaru's authority. Cecilus may also have the capability to behead Regulus through the Fiend Sword being able to cut through concepts and intangibles, but that's only a guess. Regulus has certainly proved himself to be one of the most powerful characters in the series, but the primary problem with him comes from his inability to actually take damage as long as his Little King is active. Regulus is just too favorable against too many characters in the series for me to place him any lower than this. At 5th, we have the Divine Dragon Volcanica. Volcanica is one of the 3 legendary heroes who managed to defeat and seal away the Witch of Envy Satella during the Great Calamity. Volcanica is still alive in the present day, but it seems to have fallen into some Alzheimer kind of state where it can only operate off of pure instinct and nothing else. Despite being in this state, he's still on a completely different level even when compared to other dragons. Volcanica has all sorts of abilities, such as a breath of purification that can turn its targets into dust and even kill sound itself. He possesses so much mana that it's said that he can cleanse the entire world with it. This mana being so pure and vast that it's been able to heal massive amounts of people and clean out flames once spread. Volcanica even has the ability to manipulate space, twisting and bending it to a point where he can make it swell and burst, which will eradicate anything that's hit by this attack. Volcanica has all sorts of powers and abilities that we're more than likely not aware of as of now, but even with just those that are listed, he's still a problem. Volcanica also boasts many legendary battles under its belt, such as being able to defeat Sekhmet, the second most powerful Witch of Sin, and even be able to engage in a long battle with Reinhard, while Reinhard had his Dragon Sword Reed drawn and active. Volcanica is certainly a top 5 contender, and I honestly think that he'll be moved up as we learn about more of the story and his history. After Volcanica, we have another legendary hero of the Great Calamity, the first Sword Saint and the Heavenly Sword, Reed Estrella. Reed is a man with much history and accolades under his belt. It's said that he's the one responsible for the eradication of all blight dragons in the world. Not only this, but he was capable of doing this with a single swing of his dragon sword, which is the same dragon sword that Reinhard has inherited in the present day of ReZero. To say that Reed is a legend is an understatement. He is the goal and peak of all swordsmen in ReZero, including Cecilus himself, with Reinhard being the only one who's not fond of him. Aside from being a part of the group of combatants who have managed to defeat and seal the original Witch of Envy, Reed was also an antagonist in Arc 6 that gave our heroes tons of trouble, especially Subaru. History aside, Reed is again the Heavenly Sword and the only character to have reached the zenith of swordsmanship. He's able to cut anything he desires, even concepts and authorities, while using a pair of chopsticks. Not even Reinhard is capable of doing something as ridiculous as this. Reed tends to just fight by unleashing these slashes that generate massive waves of light that destroy anything in their way. It just completely vaporizes his opponents and does massive amounts of damage to extremely powerful people such as Julius. Except for that, we didn't see him do much else, but again, it doesn't really matter since all abilities and power systems are essentially rendered null in the face of his attacks unless you have the power to match him, and 99.9% of people don't. At 3rd, we have Volcanica again. Well, not really. Aldebaran and Volcanica to be exact. This is a completely different character, as after Volcanica had his mind completely overwritten by Aldebaran placing his own Book of the Dead in front of him, he was turned into Aldebaran himself. After this would happen, there would be 2 Aldebarans, the normal human one who has the ability to create a domain where he can fight his opponent an infinite amount of times until he wins or gives up, and then the Divine Dragon Aldebaran that's just Volcanica possessed by every single one of Aldebaran's memories, making him act as if he's Aldebaran himself. So now we have 2 Aldebarans, and they work in tandem. Now I think the placement of Aldebaran on this list is fairly obvious, as when the 2 Aldebarans would fight against Reinhard, they were actually able to do insane amounts of damage to Reinhard, more than we've ever seen him take in a straight-on battle. Not only this, they only managed to do this because the human Aldebaran was able to reset the battle over 80,000 times within his own domain expansion, inching closer and closer to victory with each attempt before eventually deeming Reinhard as somebody who cannot be defeated and giving up. If Aldebaran were to do this to anybody that's not Reinhard, he would more than likely win. Aldebaran at this point of the story is ridiculously busted because when you're fighting him, you're basically fighting Volcanica with the ability to have unlimited tries against you. Aldebaran is also an extremely intelligent combatant, even beyond geniuses. In the most recent arc, he's managed to find a way to overcome both Subaru and Reinhard and remove them as obstacles in his current goal. Aldebaran certainly deserves his spot at 3 because he can really utilize his unlimited attempts domain and his other quote-unquote self to overcome anybody that may stand in his way. Above Aldebaran are two people he could never defeat, no matter how many attempts he's given. The first one of the two, and the second strongest character in the series, is the Witch of Envy, Satella. Satella is the one who was responsible for the Great Calamity, which was the event of swallowing up half of the world in her shadows. As we know, she was stopped by the combined might of many powerful characters such as Reed, Volcanica, Flugel, and more, a testament to her overwhelming strength. She is also the only other character except for Regulus that Reinhardt cannot put down because, like Regulus, she's basically a walking cheat code. Satella has been built up throughout the entire series as a monster that can never be stopped, so I'm sure we're all aware of her position in the world. Satella first and foremost has some kind of immortality that cannot be bypassed by any means. Unlike every cheat code type ability in the series, this immortality seems to cover Satella in every way possible, which again makes her unstoppable. On top of this immortality, she possesses immense power and a wide range of abilities to go along with it. She primarily uses shadow manipulation by sending out massive waves of shadows in order to engulf and swallow anything it makes contact with, all the while sending tendrils at whatever has the ability to avoid the waves. We've seen Satella also use the shadows to easily block anything sent her way. Satella is literally unbeatable, and the only way to defeat her is to seal her. Before we get into the obvious final number one pick, I do want to go over some honorable mentions, as there are so many characters that really do deserve to be on this list, but thanks to the massive cast of the story, it couldn't happen. First, we have Halibel. Halibel is the strongest of the Kingdom of Karagi. He's a combatant who can rival the likes of Cecilus and Reinhardt, and believes that he can win against anybody that isn't Reinhardt under the correct circumstances. And although this may be him being a little bit arrogant, I'm also inclined to believe that he is correct due to his strange moveset. Halibel is a shinobi who fights using jujutsu, but he's got all sorts of other techniques as well. Halibel has abilities such as being able to generate 3 clones of himself, as if he couldn't already solo kingdoms by himself alone, and each of these clones are completely identical to the original. There are no downsides to this technique. Halibel can also see dead spots in his opponents. Dead spots are exact points where the weakness of any technique or ability lie, and if Halibel hits this spot, the technique will instantly dissipate. But his trump card is his jujutsu that he can imbue into his weapons in order to instantly kill anybody that it makes contact with. Halibel, being one of the strongest, deserves his spot on the list. Another character I have as an honorable mention is Vague Adgard. We really don't know much about him, but the recent chapters have been mentioning him a lot here and there. From what's been said, he's the character with the second most divine blessings under Reinhardt, and he's the strongest of the Kingdom of Gusteko. It's implied that his special trait is being extremely difficult to kill. Even after a decade, we still haven't seen him in the main story or different timelines, but even so, we know he's a problem. The last honorable mention on this list is going to have to be Pandora, the Witch of Vainglory. So given the nature of her ability, we don't know all the details, but we do know that she can manipulate reality to a certain extent. We just know that she's not completely invincible and can do everything that she wants because she needs Emilia to fulfill one of her goals. Once we find out what Pandora can actually do and the full extent of her authority, then we can actually place her on the list, but for now, I just don't think she's shown enough. With honorable mentions out of the way, the number one choice was obvious. Reinhardt von Estrella sits as the most powerful character in all of ReZero, possessing over 100 plus divine blessings, meanwhile having the ability to wish for any more that he may need, and rip unique divine blessings away from their users. And despite all of these divine blessings, the author has stated that Reinhardt is so powerful that he's still one of the strongest without any divine blessings. Reinhardt is also undefeated in every single battle he's been in, even in the alternative timelines of the story. There's even a law in the world of ReZero called the Reinhardt Law, stating that if he crosses into another kingdom, it will be treated as if Lagunica sent a natural disaster toward the kingdom that Reinhardt has entered, and they will have to perceive it as an act of war. By the way, this law was created when Reinhardt was only 6 years old. He's defeated majority of the characters on this list without much difficulty, all the while being restricted in one way or another when facing them. Reinhardt is simply built different, and he displays this every single time he's on screen. The only character that Reinhardt cannot defeat under normal circumstances are Regulus and Satella, as it's been confirmed that Reinhardt versus Regulus would have been a stalemate without Subaru's appearance, and Satella's just immortal in every way possible. You can't defeat her. Reinhardt von Estrella sits at number 1 easily, and not much more of an explanation is required. And at 0, We have a bonus addition to this list in the form of Natsuki Subaru. Subaru, due to having returned by death, finds himself as a bonus entry on the list, as he's even more unbeatable than Reinhard. Subaru has the ability to endlessly reset the events of the world by passing away, and can essentially manipulate fate to go the way he wants it to. This is a power beyond any of Reinhard and Satella's capabilities. Aldebaran was the only person to actually defeat Subaru, as he was aware of Subaru's ability and possesses a very similar ability to Subaru that is way more limited in nature. On top of this, he knows a sealing magic that's apparently designed specifically for Subaru himself. So yeah, Aldebaran is an extremely hard counter to Subaru. But except for that, Subaru is essentially unbeatable, as he has the ability to figure out every character's weakness through the knowledge he possesses of the real world and endless attempts at combating them. He is also again the only character that stands directly above fate itself. With that said, that about covers the 10 most powerful characters in the series, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts below, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out.